People are talking about super processed foods as if it's a new thing, as if this is something that we just discovered. Super processed foods is super bad for you. To some people, like a new revelation, something we've missed, and this might be the missing link, is almost like a joke. So there was a book published back in 1939. That's almost 100 years ago, not quite, by Weston A. Price. It's called Nutrition and Physical Degradation. And in this book, he details what happens to a population when you have a population of people that are living quite primitively, and then suddenly you introduce Western foods. So back then, it wasn't as processed as it is now. It was like introducing wheat and sugar, alcohol. And then he looks at what happens to the people that are living under these Western influences, eating the type of food that most people in our society eat. And then, like, compared to the group of people that are living only, say, 50 kilometers away, but they have the same genetic makeup. And in this book, he details what happens to their teeth, their dental arches, like the skull, and their whole physical appearance, diseases. And what he noticed was that very soon after you introduce the type of foods that most people are eating today, you will start to see a decay in human health. And the interesting thing is that a lot of people will still argue that the reason we are fat is because we're eating too many calories. And that might very well be the case, but what is the reason that we're eating too many calories? The thing is, and I keep coming back to this, is even though a lot of people make fun of the whole paleo diet, it is still today, in my opinion, the best way to look at human nutrition if you want to live a healthy life. If you just ask the question, the food that I'm about to eat, how close is this to stuff that I would be able to find in nature? And if the answer is that it's very far away from anything that I can find in nature or grow myself or hunt down, then it's probably not the best thing to eat. And that is regardless of how many calories are in it. So you might be debating whether or not you should drink soft drink that doesn't have sugar because it has aspartame in it instead. And you might be debating, is aspartame or sweeteners, artificial sweeteners, is this a good thing or is it a bad thing or is it a benign thing? And some studies will show that it has an effect on how many calories people will consume in the meal. Other studies show that because you're not consuming any calories, it has no effect on weight. But if you're in doubt, then just ask that simple question. Is this something that you would be able to find in nature? And if you're looking to improve your health, and the answer is this is very far from anything I would be able to find in nature, and you're struggling with your health, then you probably shouldn't consume that. And it's just mind-boggling to me that we are still having this debate back and forth about whether or not it's the calories, whether or not it's the quality of food, if carnivore diet is good or bad, when you see a ton of people having success on this diet, and then you have a lot of other people hating on it because they think it's too extreme. I mean, it's ridiculous that we're having this debate about foods that are natural and that have been part of human diet forever. And other people will say, but even the word natural doesn't make any sense because snake poison is natural and that will kill you. And I completely agree on that. But that is a word that most people understand and associate with something that comes from nature. To keep it really simple, and this has worked for me personally for many years, is to look at food that has to nourish your body and then fuel your activity. And if food becomes something you consume to comfort you or something you consume to reward you for doing something, then that takes you on a different path. And the sooner you acknowledge that, the sooner you can start to change the direction back. If you have a relationship to food, then there's something wrong, because food has a completely different purpose. It is sustenance, and it is something that nourishes your body and builds your body up. But if it starts to become entangled with emotions, then we start to see all these negative side effects. It all comes back to what have human beings been eating throughout time before we had the Industrial Revolution, where suddenly we had an abundance of calories and a deficit of nutrients. And it doesn't matter if you look at what people ate in Africa, or if you look at what did they eat in Alaska or in China or in Japan or in South America. What you will find is that people ate some kind of animal source, whether that be fish, shellfish, meat, poultry. This is what human beings have always treasured. It is what we've always been eating, and it is the only food that we can survive on if we only eat one thing. Have humans been eating plants as well? For sure, but not everywhere, because there's not a lot of plants to be found in Alaska in the winter, or in Finland in the winter, or in Greenland, or in the northern part of Norway. But for sure, humans are opportunistic, and we will eat fruits, we will eat green stuff whenever we come upon it. We will eat nuts and seeds and berries and all of this stuff. But this has only been present for a very short time of the year throughout human history. And now you can go to any supermarket and you can get basically whatever you want any time of the year. And I'm not saying that that's a problem, but it's definitely a luxury and it's something that we should be grateful for. But if you then take the next layer and say, I deserve to be able to eat anything, and you can have your Snickers, you can have your Mars bars, you can have your ice cream, you can have your gummy bears, you can have anything you want any time of the year. Of course, that's gonna make humans run into problems. So my whole take on this is to simplify stuff. So instead of trying to add a bunch of stuff in the hope that eating this supplement or doing this or that will somehow magically undo all the damage of all the shitty foods that we eat, maybe we should try to just get rid of all the stuff, all the crappy foods that are just contributing with calories and very little with nutrients. And then we'll end up with something that's nutritionally dense, that will satisfy us, that will nourish our bodies, make us stronger, make us healthier, and in the end, probably also make us happier. But hey, that's just my take on it. I know there's a lot of people out there that will start to go on PubMed and they will start to cherry pick or look at studies that show that what matters is just calories and it doesn't matter what you eat. But the problem is that most of these studies look at diet short term. And as soon as you start to look at diet long term, it's really hard to do a study. You can do a correlative study where you're asking people, what did you eat in a year, or how many times did you eat this in a week for the past year? As soon as you start to do that, the data can only give you an idea of how people are eating. It can't really show you cause and effect. If you haven't read this book, just search and find an executive summary. It's full of very interesting pictures. What happens to people when you introduce crappy food like we're eating today? Most of the highly processed foods that we're eating and that we're also probably feeding our children consists of mainly like 4 or 5 ingredients. I think we need to simplify it because I think diet is becoming more about emotion and about what people think is right and wrong instead of looking at what do humans actually eat? Like what do the human animal actually eat? Because in the end, we're part of the animal kingdom. We just kind of risen above it. And if you try to feed a gorilla biscuits, they will also start to get tooth decay and they will start to become fat. And if you try to make a lion vegan, you will run into problems for sure. And I think this is part of what we've been trying to do as a society, trying to make the human animal eat stuff that we are not evolved to eat. And yeah, to simplify it and make your life a whole lot